February 28th meeting of the Comprehensive Plan Task Force. My name is Al LeGros. I'm the chair of the task force, and I'd like to quickly go around and introduce members. If you're near a microphone, great. If not, maybe use sign language or something for the people out there, but I'll start with, they can hear me.
Judy Colby George from Viewshed.
Madeline Tripp from Viewshed.
George Prince.
Matt Gilly.
Kayla Matthews.
Julie Moulton.
Kevin Johnson.
Dave Brown.
Phil Taylor.
Amy Heibel.
All right, and I know Mary Ann is snaking up to the
Snaking up to the front.
front. That's great. All right, thank you very much. Want to go through things quickly at the start because there are a couple of important things we have to get to. And I understand that from the technology people that we're limited in terms of the amount of time we have to record these things.
We're working on
so.
a fix.
Okay. All right. Last meeting, we talked a fair amount about the interior zone and potential changes that might take place there to accommodate more flexibility in terms of what might be built in the interior zone. And that generated a number of questions and important conversation. But it's important for us as a task force, we need to really understand what these recommendations, what we're putting forward to the community really mean in terms of what it might look like in the interior zone in certain areas if people decide to build duplexes and things like that. We can have a more fulsome conversation of that later on, but I think that's an important thing for us to consider as a task force. I'd like to also ask, we have two sets of minutes that we have not approved yet. One is this, January 10th, and the other one is December, help me, Kayla.
That was January 29th.
January 29th.
Does that sound right?
Okay. And those things have been disseminated to the task force, and if I can get a recommendation to approve the minutes? Okay, approved. Recommendation to approve. Any discussion? Corrections? All in favor?
I have a correction.
Correction, yes.
I believe I was at the January 10th meeting.
Okay, so we'll make that correction, Kayla?
I will make that correction.
Okay.
Sorry,
She was
Mary.
probably hiding in the booth, so you couldn't see her.
All right, subject to that change, we have approval for those minutes that have been forwarded. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
New business. We want to focus on the draft plan. A lot of information has been sent out in the last couple of weeks, parts 1 and 2 of the draft plan. And so at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Judy to let her kind of shepherd, at least start the discussion for the draft plan.
All right. So everybody received a link to the both sections of the plan. And what I'd like to do is to get an understanding from people if the plan is essentially the way you want it and says the things you want it to say, if we've missed things, on a large scale. Yep.
I just wonder if you could put the future land use map up again, because I have a couple different copies, and I couldn't find one on the website, and so I want to make sure we're all looking at the same thing.
Put it up here so we have it last time.
Yeah.
Okay, while we're waiting for that to happen, just a couple of comments. And I'm probably skipping a little bit out of the agenda. But I wanted to pass on to everybody the dates that we've decided on for the information meetings in March for the task force. We're going to have a meeting in the Cundies Harbor area at the community hall, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Fire station is the same thing.
Okay, March 21st, 4 to 6 p.m. Oars and Bailey Island at the schoolhouse, March 23rd, 9:30 to 11:30. And at the Kellogg Church on the west side of Harpswell, March 24th from 2 to 4 p.m. I believe the last time we met, Matt had volunteered to kind of lead the Cundy's Harbor meeting. I will certainly lead the Oars and Bailey Island meeting. I'm looking for a volunteer to lead the March 24th meeting, and by lead it, what I mean is a person from the task force to kind of lay out, here are the basic components, elements of the plan, and answer any questions that might arise there, and then open it up to the participants to get their input. This is a dialogue. It's not a one-way discussion, if you will. It's a dialogue. We want to hear if people are concerned about what they're hearing, what we're telling them, and if so, why, and what their recommendations are as to how we might make some adjustments. So we have 3 dates set, and in addition to that, we are going to have a handout, and I think Judy, is this what you're proposing for, as a handout?
Yep.
Okay, we'll take a look at that in more detail, but we're going to have this handout that was provided to make available to members that attend the March town meeting. It's March 9th, I think, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to be sitting side by side with the Affordable or Attainable Housing Working Group, so it's going to be a yin-yang thing going on there. But we do have a space there, and whether it's people coming in or going out, I'm not exactly sure where we're going to be positioned, but we're going to need some volunteers to man that station, if you will, during the town meeting to make sure this is available to people. It's another way to get the information out to the community. You'll see an article in the Harpswell Anchor, I think probably coming out tomorrow, that talks about why the task force was not ready to present or have a vote in March, and it will also actually allude to the schedule that I've just mentioned there, that we're trying to get information and input from the community on the entire plan, not just bits and pieces like we've sort of discussed before.
I think there's a couple other things about those meetings, Al.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think that no matter who's running them, that as many people from the committee as possible, you need to show up and enforce, like, you need to be there both to help answer questions, but also so that it's not just like one person doing it, and you all need to be hearing what's being said. And then if you're gonna gather feedback, we have to have a method for that feedback
Yeah.
to be written down while the meeting is going on.
At
So-
a minimum, we need 2 people, minimum. One to kind of take notes, if you will, and the other one to present, go over the plan. As I said, we've got I think 2/3 of the tripod covered, but we need some help in West Harpswell at Kellogg Church. So please think about how you can participate in that. Yes, sir.
With the attainable housing, we actually drafted talking points so that we stuck to message, and we hopefully hit most of what we went out to the community with. So I would recommend 13 points or something. It'll just keep everybody running the same track.
I agree. It's important that the person, that at the 3 meetings, we're conveying the same message. So I agree with that completely.
And we'll write those up. There'll be, some of it's on there, but I think that doesn't have all, like,
Okay.
as many as you will probably want for a full meeting. Because it's intended to be something very short and readable for people.
Okay, so we're still waiting for the technology to catch up with the reality here.
The technology is just electricity.
Yeah. Repeat the dates and times of the meetings. Cundy's Harbor at the Community Center, March 21st, 4 to 6 p.m. Oars and Bailey Island, March 23rd, 9:30 to 11:30. that's a Saturday, and Kellogg Church, March 24th. Appropriately, it's a Sunday, 2 to 4 p.m. So we're going to need some people to cover those meetings, for sure.
These are in addition to April 10th? That's
Yes.
still on, okay.
The April meeting is a public hearing. And I expect that to take place at the elementary school.
Yeah.
And the idea, again, it's another opportunity for the community to kind of weigh in on, okay, here's what you're telling me the plan is, here's what we think about it. And so this is in addition to that. And then we roll that up and hopefully make some final tweaks and then have it ready to go for the May vote, if you will. So that's sort of the general schedule. Matt,
Are we gonna have a draft plan ready, do you think, by those March meetings, so we can,
we better have a meeting.
yeah, so we can have that on hand, so if people wanted to read through the whole thing, they could?
Yeah.
Yeah, the plan is to have it by.
The draft plan has to be available to the public a month before
The
April
public
10th.
hearing?
Yeah,
Okay,
so-
so it has
so
to be
early
ready
March.
by March
Yeah,
10th then?
yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Caught up, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? All right, well, we're still waiting. I can't see that. We're still waiting for the.
We're still waiting. Maybe if there's other things that people have questions about, we could go on to those and then come back.
All right. I sent something out this afternoon to everybody, looking at the first part of Part 1.
I did too.
I got the message, but not the,
Yeah, there was, I sent a follow-on because, as typically happens, I forgot to put the attachment on the original
I
message.
didn't get that for some reason.
But I sent it out recognizing that it was not going to it was not going to really have an impact necessarily on this meeting tonight. But I wanted to get everybody to understand the level that we really have to get into this plan. We have to really look at, is it written in the best English, if you will, that we can provide? Are there logical mistakes that pop out at you? And there are several. Does it say what we really want to say? Are there things that we can do to maybe make the message clearer? And so that was my main motivation for putting out what I did this afternoon, recognizing that more work needs to be done to really get it to a point where I think we're ready to unveil it to the public. How are we doing?
I think we might be there.
Okay.
How come it's not bright?
Because it's not hooked up.
Do something.
Okay.
Tap it.
Okay.
That's what I do, just tap it.
Peter will come to the rescue. Well, we'll see.
It was there. I don't know.
Judy, you think you want to add anything at this point relative to the plan, or do you want to?
Well, I guess, the reason we sent it out when we did was hoping that people would comment on it. We didn't get any. So, if people can, so I think the important thing tonight is to find out
Yeah.
in the reordering of the way we reordered stuff after talking about it the last time, is that working for people? Is the executive summary working better? Are the main points there? There may be spelling things and there may be some grammar things that need to be fixed, but in general, is the plan,
Did you see what I sent you this afternoon?
Yes.
Okay.
yep,
So there are a number of different grammatical mistakes that have to be corrected, first of all. And I think there are certain pages, important pages, that need to perhaps be either rewritten or organized a little bit differently to make the message clearer. Everybody's going to see what I sent you, so this will make more sense when they take a look at it. But there are some, I would say, major sticking points. And one is sort of there are two areas that I'm really focused on. One is making sure that we have included in the plan the reality of what's happened to our working waterfront this year. We talked about sustaining and things like that in very general terms. No, we're talking about reconstructing, essentially. And so that needs to be conveyed in a way that make it clear that the town is really needs to focus on this over the next 5 or 10 years, because it's going to take a number of years. It's not going to happen like that. But that's one concern. The other concern is this, the whole thing about housing and the confluence of housing, maintaining the rural character that we have, and how we kind of fit all that together in a meaningful way. And that's why I'm glad to see people from the affordable housing, attainable housing working group here, because that is a core issue that came up during our conversations over the last couple of years with the community. And so how do we maintain rural character? How do we protect our resources, water, and so on and so forth, and yet provide opportunities for greater diversity in what we have in housing in terms of the town. So those are key things.
And those are the three key things that we pulled out, that they're in there
Yeah.
as, so we said, here are the three things that we think are most important. Working waterfront, sorry, I went past the first one is housing. Housing and development strategies, working waterfront, and then protecting the environment. And we tried to pull out and talk about, what we had heard about those things. And and it says, these are what we heard most often, these are the things that are most important. I think we could, since most of this was written before the storms, we stuck to the things we had talked about at that point. But I think in this harbor management paragraph, maybe what we should do is add to that and make it more clear.
Well, there are a
Maybe
couple.
George and Matt will help.
There are a
me
couple
with-
things there from my perspective. One is, we talked early on about access, maintaining access to the waterfront. There was nothing really in there about access. And then the business about reconstruction. And I jotted something else down. Maybe it's about sea level rise and how do we address environmental changes, sea level rise, resiliency, and things like that. That didn't really come out very clearly in the plan. I'm not gonna talk much longer, but my message to the task force is, you gotta really dig into this. We're at the 11th hour here, and you guys need to take a critical look at what we have here and make some recommendations about how we can make it clearer, how we can clean it up, and so on and so forth, to make this the best that we can, so that when we roll it out for a vote in May, it's the best effort that we can put forward.
So, in terms of the executive summary, so we talked about these, we went through these and said these were the most important ones, and if they've changed, then we'll need to change them. So, right to fish, reviewing the shoreline zoning and making sure that it's effectively working to maintain working waterfronts, and then harbor management, which we can add more things to. Do we need to add another topic in there?
I'll turn it over to you guys. What do you think?
I mean, all the other things are there, all the things you mentioned are in there, they're just
We need
not
to
on
talk
that
about
page.
reconstruction, or, this is the town going forward for the next 10 years. What do you see as the priority here?
Definitely the rebuilding.
Rebuilding.
Like you spoke about, needs to be
Yeah.
added, should be added at this
Right,
point.
add something like that and make it so maybe there's not, like, barriers that people have to jump through in order to rebuild.
Yep.
So explain a little bit more what you mean by that. You mean like financial barriers?
Well, I mean, that's obviously one, but there's not much a comp plan can do, I don't think, about financial barriers. I'm talking more like
Regulatory.
regulatory barriers, like if they wanna, like we were talked about the last meeting, if they wanted to raise their wharf up 2 feet, you know, or move their fish house that was on the end of the wharf to the short side of the wharf, you know, instead of having to go through an entire permitting process, you know, again, you know, maybe we could somehow expedite that for the rebuild. That's something that you know far more about being on the planning board than I do.
Yeah. Okay, good input.
I think a lot of that, though, is gonna be from DEP by permit, by rule.
Yep, okay.
It's not gonna be quite as, Army Corps probably won't be involved, you know, and frankly, a lot of these wharfs, there's no documentation on how they were in the first place.
That's a valid point.
And,
So you can build anything you
And this
want.
couple, the two on Bailey Island that went, I don't think they're documented how big they were.
Yep.
So, I know one of them wants to expand because there's a boulder in the way when he comes in, it's a skeg, so, you know, I don't think it's gonna be overwhelming as far as, regulation.
I don't either, honestly. That was the only thing I could think of.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
Yes, Marion.
I'm just thinking, Judy, I mean, we started this like 2 years ago. Is there anything wrong with just addressing the fact right out in the front that we had this storm? And it's changed our direction and our focus on what we want to really concentrate on.
Yeah, it definitely has changed. I mean,
it
we're not
has.
talking about sustaining or you know, whatever. We're talking about reconstruction.
We're talking about, and the way things are set up just in general, the facilities to do that are not there. So it's something the town, I think, is going to have to focus on, if that is what we want to do.
Okay.
You know, similar to what they said is that FEMA only covers homes
Public.
and public buildings. You know, what happens to the business, how do you deal with that as a
The
town?
commercial, yep.
Other comments at this point? Judy, I don't know if you had any formal pitch to go through or any arrangement of items, but,
Could we see the future land use map?
Yeah, sure.
Is that,
Yeah.
that does make a difference in how we see things.
Give you a reference, I had to repair a seawall recently down on Grave Point, and town administered, said, gotta go DEP, get her approval. And such, literally took me 1 day. So there are people willing to help.
Good.
Mr. Planner, it looks like you
Mr.
want to say
Chairman.
something.
Yeah, and I don't know where you want to put it in here, but the Affordable Housing Working Group took the draft of Part 1 and Part 2 and went through it and has sort of put together a punch list of proposed changes. And some of those are what I would call substantial. And I've already talked to Judy about those, and some of them are more strategic, if you will, the way things are said. And I don't think we need to go through them. Like last meeting, we changed 30% attainable to 70%, and that didn't get,
I already fixed it.
yeah, Judy's already fixed some of those. And so if it's okay with the chair, I will just provide that list to you and to Judy to go through and make those edits.
And then we'll send it out to the rest of the task force.
Yep, okay?
Okay, unless anybody has a burning. So I mean, when you said substantial changes, can you kind of just give us a
Well,
thumbnail sketch about what you mean?
yeah, I mean, there are sort of, I would say 4 of them. And I think Judy may have already corrected some of them because we talked about them. But there was the thing about the minimum amount of attainable units that had to be included in a housing proposal for both the Doughty Point and Mitchell Field. Last meeting, you voted to make it 70%. The provision for the replacement for the current workforce housing provision wasn't included in the rural district. And the language about the Mitchell Field and the Doughty Point districts in terms of kind of style of housing units that could be allowed doesn't include multifamily housing. And I think the feeling of the workforce housing group, I'm sorry, the affordable housing group, is that they would like to see multifamily included in those two places, even though current fire protection rules make it unlikely that somebody could do it.
You're talking about the 12-unit type.
Well, it really is just that you can allow multifamily, more than 3 units in a building.
And those were all those things that Mark mentioned were in the document that we approved last time.
Right.
And they just
then
didn't get
carried
translated.
forward.
Yeah. So that's why I just fixed them.
Yeah. The multi-unit structure is interesting to me because of the couple that I know of in town don't do very well in terms of water, for sure. Merritt House, for one, has all their water imported. And there's an apartment complex in Cundies.
Millstone.
And I know that they've had issues with water as well. So I'm a little bit concerned about that type of a unit, if you will, succeeding, if you will. I mean, I can see duplexes and smaller lots and
The
things.
language limits the amount of bedrooms, whether it's in 3-bedroom, single-family homes or in 1-bedroom apartment units. And so essentially the amount of water that you're going to use, whether depending upon the housing form, is not significantly different.
Can you roll up,
So more than likely, they're maximum 4 buildings together. Even though we're saying 8 or 12, we don't know what future state fire marshal requirements will be, but right now, the town will only allow us to put 4 units together. And so that could be 4 single-bedroom units. It's no more than a house.
right,
Each and every one of our pop-ups, of the 100-plus people that came to the meetings, all of them wanted either apartments or townhouses or cottage-style homes. And so it was the second most desired living condition. In one of the committees that we went to recently to talk about the attainable housing work, one of the Orr's Island Book Club members said, I want an apartment. I don't want to worry about my well. I don't want to worry about the front door falling off. I just want to live. You start to say, wait a minute, you can understand that. So I just say, we don't want to put, parentheses around anything we're doing right now. We want to keep it malleable, so that we can have opportunity. We don't know, but I think we would ask that stay open for consideration. We don't have the answers.
comments?
I just have to speak as a planning board member, and we get put in the position where we are told that there's plenty of water on the site, and we don't have any idea whether there is or not until there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And And so then our recourse is to say, well, okay, well then, you have to do upfront studies to show us that there's enough water on the site. You're gonna have to do a hydrology test, running 2 or 3 days. Well, that costs money. And so the person that's coming to us says, well, that costs a lot of money, and, you know, I can't afford to do that. I don't want it, my geologist says, there's plenty of water here. And it just puts the planning board in a position of, he's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. And I really like to, whatever is done, to give the planning board really powerful assistance to make sure that they don't get stuck in that position. Because once you're stuck in that position, you really can't move. And so I'm gonna say it out, you know, please don't put us there. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'm asking you to, you know, have mercy on the planning board, because
I think number one issue at all the pop-ups was water and septic. And when we take that into consideration throughout, and I do agree with you've got handcuffs on to make an agreement on a planning board agenda item saying it is valid. And maybe it is the affordability of trying to do the pretest. I'm not opposed to what you're saying.
Well,
I understand what you're saying.
I know you do, but I just, you know, we've had a really dry winter. I've had several people come up to me and tell me they're worried that their well's gonna run dry this summer. And so we just, you know, it's a really tough, it's just a tough position. I just wanna put that out there.
Anyone else?
Well, I actually had a long conversation with the state hydrologist, Ryan Gordon, and we haven't had the snow, but we certainly had the rain in November, December, and January. Our water levels are up. And essentially what he said, we don't have any heavy industry. You've got your problem areas like Oars Island, Hurricane Ridge, those places where historically you have had water problems. But basically what he said, he says, you don't have anything to worry about. He says, Maine's got plenty of waterfall. It's rare. During the drought, my static water level never changed. It was always there. Nobody in my neighborhood lost water. And the people who lost water, there are historical areas that they lose water. But he essentially said, don't worry about it. You don't have any heavy industry. You have nothing pulling on it. So that's from the state hydrologist.
Well, I just have to say, you know, maybe we should get him here to give us a report. That
actually,
would be great if that could happen.
He told Jim had the conversation with him.
Good, well,
Same fellow.
let's get him here and be able to ask him questions.
Yes, sir.
I think we need some guidance from the chair on what we're doing. I mean, we've got a limited amount of time. I can't see the clock yet.
Yeah, we kind of went off the rails.
The agenda item says we're gonna vote on this plan, and now we're talking about water tests, which we haven't talked about before. And it's a valid thing to talk about, I'm not suggesting it isn't, but at that rate, I don't know how we can in any good conscience say, oh, we clarified the water thing, it took us an hour and a half, now we're ready to vote on the entire plan. So how are we gonna pace this discussion and focus it so that we really feel we can come to a vote? Or maybe we should put off the vote, but I think we need some direction on how we structure this discussion.
Well, I think we started off by saying there were at least three things that were important. Working waterfront, housing, and the natural environment, which I would lump in, you know, water. And so if we're going to approve the plan, as we would hope to do tonight, those are germane discussions, in my opinion. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, at least I would encourage, if anybody has any reservations about what the plan says regarding these three topics, speak now, because you're right, we're getting to the point where we're going to have to move on.
I have a comment on that. No, then, I joined this committee back in November, and I've appreciated being included in all my time here and stuff. But that being said, I think this is a comprehensive plan, and I'm not sure if we all understand what the definition of comprehensive is. Because I look around at the people, and you don't have to glare at me, Amy, I look at the people around, and I don't see anybody younger than myself. You know, I don't see anybody with kids here in school. How can we call this a comprehensive plan when we haven't included any parents? Nobody has to answer this, but I'm willing to bet I'm the only person under the age of 40 on the committee here. Where's the young people input in this? And I've only been here since November, and I've tried to do my best to get caught up and do what I can, but I feel like we are not including a large part of this town in this plan.
Okay, so,
I can actually answer that
Yeah.
better than anybody here, because
Sure.
I'm on every committee in town.
Yeah.
We can't get you guys out of the house. You're raising families, you're working. You know, you basically, other than,
I submitted an application to the planning board, Kevin, that I haven't heard back on 3 months. I've
Actually-
submitted multiple applications, and the town doesn't get back to me.
I just saw it the other day.
Okay.
And, well, by the way, you gotta go in and get sworn in for this committee.
I know, I got that email yesterday, actually.
As long as I'm giving you hell, you know, I might just drag you into that one. No,
okay, Matt, we've heard that before.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's definitely registered.
and
There
Kay was
have,
there.
there have been some.
41.
There have
I'll
been
be
some
40 in a
efforts,
couple months, so I had to say it while I still could.
there were efforts made to reach out to the school and the.
And like I said, I haven't been here since the
Yeah,
beginning, so.
Understand, and it's a valid thing. But to that point, we've had a number of different town meetings throughout the course of this thing. And it seems like whenever we schedule them, there's something that's wrong. Well, my kid is going to soccer, or has a baseball tournament, or whatever the case might be. There's no way you can reach everybody. But there are meetings that we've scheduled here in the next 6 weeks. And I would hope that we can take advantage of that time to get the younger people out. There are 3 opportunities here in March. There's another one in April. And hopefully, we can grab a number of the folks and get them to participate in those meetings.
I've just heard a lot of concern from people my age that I've spoken to about the plan.
Yeah.
And I hope that they man up and show up to some of these meetings. I agree, you can't drag people to them.
If
It's up to
if
their
you
own
tell
free
me,
will.
if you give me a date and a time, I'll show up.
I'm pretty good at it
Okay?
too. Yep.
Okay? That's an offer on my part. All right,
George has some.
George.
So my comment would be similar to Matt's, not more about the age, but there's still some holes in the plan. The next thing on the agenda is to vote to approve the plan, which I'm sure it's probably gonna pass. I have not been here, I got here the same night Matt did, and you've all been working a long time on this and hard. I understand you all wanna pass it, that's fine. But there's still some holes here. I don't understand how we vote without all the pieces of the puzzle. So,
Okay, so
that's just my comment. Again, I'm assuming it's gonna pass, and I guess my final comment would be to you, Al, to call the vote. Let's
all right,
move on.
well,
Well, if
before
you
we
think
call
there's
the vote.
holes, what holes do you think there are? So that would help.
Well, he just mentioned 3 things that he just mentioned 3 things that aren't in the plan.
We already edited those, so they're all there.
Also, there's been a lot of discussion about mixed-use housing. A lot of people are not in favor of it in certain parts of the town. And, what else was there? Housing on Mitchell Field, there's a lot of opposition to that. Like I said, I'm sure it's gonna pass, and we have 1 opportunity to vote it down, 4 opportunities to revisit, so. I guess fair enough at this point. If people haven't been engaged, then so be it. That was more of a comment just for the record, I guess.
That's what mine was too, just to be clear. I wanted it on the record.
Okay,
No, but if there are any gaps, you do need to speak up, you know?
yeah, and be specific.
Yeah.
Where are the gaps? The way I look at this
Mary Ann
is,
had some.
I'm sorry.
It was just a quick comment. Last week, George, when you made the comment, I think, had we had more time, and we
Right.
didn't, I would like to know what the, why. In other words, you talked to a lot of folks, and you said you don't think it's gonna pass. I would like to know the reasons. And I don't know that we have time for that now, but if nothing else, that is something that we should probably continue to explore,
So-
even after the fact.
Again, it was about the mixed use, the yellow shaded areas, and we seem to have just moved it around from one part of town to another, and how did that come about? How did we decide?
Okay.
You know, and that was long before I was here, so.
But that's interesting,
But
because
the
it's
moves
not-
have been made since I've been here, so.
It's sort of the movement of the of these mixed uses rather than the idea of mixed use.
And some people are in favor of no mixed use that I've spoken with as well, so.
Were there like specific, or like things about the like the requirements in the mixed use zone that people didn't like?
Mostly, let's be honest, we're not protecting ourselves from ourselves, we're protecting ourselves from our neighbors, right? Say a neighbor sells a piece of property, the new neighbor moves in, wants to put in a business. So if there's no mixed use next door to my house, then that doesn't happen, so.
Yeah.
Although currently, you can build that anywhere.
Yes.
The whole interior zone, you can put a commercial anywhere you want. And there's nothing to stop people from doing that. So,
Also, when I was talking about holes in the plan,
Yep.
we don't know, we just had a discussion about what the buildings on Mitchell Field would look like. Are they gonna be apartment buildings, or are they gonna be cottages? What are they gonna be? So, that would be another
To be determined.
issue.
But,
Yeah, but how do you do it, how do you vote on something to be determined, Kevin? I mean,
well, but it's time to vote to do this. We're getting off track a little bit, but the Mitchell Field, we'll take Mitchell Field, even my backyard, beautiful piece of property. We walked it the other day, but Mitchell Field was already voted on once to allow housing there. You look at the master plan, and you'll see some housing on there. You know, there's depiction of houses. The town would have to vote on it again, even though they voted on it once to allow housing there. You know, we do need housing in town, you know? You
no, I
guys,
won't argue with that.
what's that?
I would not argue with that.
Yeah, I know, and you and I both know a lot of people that love to move back here in town.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah,
and I also think that part of it is, so the purpose of the future land use plan is to set out the ideas and ideals of the intention of what you want to see happen. And then the implementation committee, they'll be writing ordinances. Those ordinances will have design standards. We say they have to have design standards. And so at that point, that's when you're gonna get down to the, what will they look like?
Yep.
And then those ordinances also have to be adopted by town meetings. So, I mean, it's not like you say yes to this and then people can willy-nilly do whatever they want, because the future land use plan, nothing happens to it except that until you make it into ordinance language. And so there'll be a significant amount of effort and time to, you know, refine the general things that we've said into really specific language, and then people will vote on that ordinance change. That'll come to town meeting and be voted on as an ordinance change. And that's before anybody comes through with a project, which will go to planning board and also have time for people to make comments. So, you know, I don't think it's that if you say yes to multifamily housing, that 100% it's true that you'll get a 3-story 12 apartment building there, because, you know, people could make clear on the implementation committee, and I assume they will have public meetings, that that's not what they want. But again, if the committee wants to limit that somehow, you know, the Affordable Housing Committee has said, please don't. You can still say, we don't want anything more than 8, you know, units, if that's what you want to say. You are allowed to say that. You could disagree with them. So you could put that in the plan so that the implementation committee knows that that was your intention.
Yes, sir.
So I'd just like to address a couple things. First of all, I agree with the problem that most of the people on this task force have gray hair or, you know, white hair.
I do too. It's in my beard.
There you go. More is coming.
Yeah, I know.
Some of us don't have any.
I'm there too.
But the town does a whole lot of stuff with volunteers, right? They do a whole lot of stuff with volunteers, and for better or worse, people who have time to volunteer are probably not people working 8 or 9 hours a day and then taking care of their kids in the evening. So it's a benefit that the town can get so much done with volunteers, but there's a downside to that benefit, right? It maybe excludes people. So I think that's just a problem. It is what it is. The second thing is, I think we, at the beginning of this task force, I thought we were moving kind of slow, but it was because we were trying to arrange reach-out sessions with lots and lots of folks. And some of those were just people from our local road associations. Some of those were more formal events. I remember a great big one at the school that I think was pretty helpful. So a lot of the people that aren't here as volunteers have either participated or had the opportunity to participate, and we had to do the best we could do at collecting their voices. The last thing I'll say is, one of the things at least I learned from talking to all those people is there's no one consensus, right? Like we've said here, there's people that might want affordable housing and see the benefits of it. There's a lot of them. There's a bunch of people that maybe don't want that. There's people who think that the biggest problem is potable water, and other people who think that working waterfront is the biggest problem or opportunity that we have to work on. So there's not going to be a plan that we can put together that doesn't get pushback, right? If we go up with a plan and we get pushback, that means we did something, right? So, and if we really screw it up, presumably we have a chance to change some of those things. But I think, I agree that there's maybe some problems with what's yellow and what's not yellow and how we decided there, but let's fix what we can fix and go. End of my speech.
Amy.
I'm sorry if you thought I was glaring at you.
If looks could kill, I'd be dead.
I know what a comprehensive plan is, and I know what comprehensive means, so I was kind of like, what? But I think that we had, when we did our feedback sessions, there were some attended by fishermen. Most of the people that attended were gray hairs, and and I agree with Al and other folks. We really have done our best to try to get younger folks to come to the meetings, and you can't go in and drag people out from the supper table.
We provided childcare, some of them.
We did.
All of them.
Provided childcare.
It made a big difference when you guys moved the meetings to the nighttime. That's what made it
Yeah, we-
able for me to attend
Yeah,
was
my point
something
is
in the
that we
evenings.
tried and that we listened. What I heard right from the beginning was about 4 or 5 problem areas. One was potable groundwater. People were very concerned about that. From direct experience of losing their water, from having to have water brought in, lots of different reasons people were very concerned about. That was probably one of the very top concerns. The second was affordable housing, the third was a fishing community, and the fourth was protecting rural character in Harpswell. People were really concerned that Harpswell is growing too fast and that we're losing what makes Harpswell Harpswell. We have addressed affordable housing, we have addressed the commercial fishing issue. We have not talked enough about how affordable housing affects potable groundwater, and we haven't even had one meeting where we've actually talked about how to protect rural character. Not one meeting. I tried, but I couldn't get it on the agenda. I think I think we could satisfy all those concerns. I think we could create a plan that really balances out and addresses all those issues, but I don't think we have. I think what we have now has been driven by commercial fishing, which is fine. It's a good driver. It's important. It needs to be talked about. And by affordable housing. And we have talked about that, and we're continuing to talk about it. But we haven't talked about rural character, and we haven't talked about how you make sure you have a good supply of potable groundwater, given the development pressures that we are facing. And so those are holes that I think we have, and I don't think we've started to fill them yet.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Do you-
I mean,
What do you have for recommendations, I guess, to deal with potable water? I'm not sure what we could do as a comprehensive plan. Is there ideas that you have?
Yeah, I do. I do have ideas. I'm not sure how they'd be accepted, but I'm happy to share them. We have a soils map that shows the carrying capacity to be 3 to 5 acres in a lot of places in town. I think we should find places where we can either have community wells, community septic systems, and we should really look at making design standards and focusing our affordable housing in certain areas where we really feel we have the carrying capacity, and not spreading them all over town. That's how I would do it. We have a situation in Brunswick where Brunswick is just building to meet the ban, and there's a very thin line between Brunswick and Harpswell. And if we open the door to multifamily dwelling units, it's gonna come, and I share George's concern. It's you know, and I don't think we're really prepared to deal with it. I really don't. Brunswick is on public water and public sewer. Every community that I looked at, and I know Mark disagrees with this, and maybe Judy disagrees with it, but every community I looked at that regulated lot size by number of bedrooms was on public water and sewer. And I still haven't seen any community that's like Harpswell, that relies solely on groundwater, shallow depth to bedrock, and has no public sewer, that's regulating lot sizes by bedroom size. I just, you know, and what happens, we haven't even discussed this. What happens if you say, okay, planning board, this is what we have to do with, you have a 17,500 square foot lot with 1 bedroom unit on it. That lot used to be 40,000 square foot, but now we've reduced it because we're following this comp plan to 17,500 square feet. And the person says, well, 5 years later, now I want to put 2 bedrooms in. Well, sorry, you can't. But I really want to. I really need that 2 bedrooms. I can't afford to sell my house and do anything else. I'd really like to get 2 bedrooms. Does that come before the planning board, or does that just go to codes? You know, we haven't even talked about that. And we have barely gotten off the dime as far as I'm concerned. We have a lot more to discuss.
So,
go
so
ahead.
just a reminder that the places where you can have other than duplexes are the 2 affordable housing places and the 2 yellow spots. Everywhere else, you can only have a duplex.
And frankly, land's too expensive for anybody to come in and build a couple of duplexes and expect to get their money back.
Bob?
I think we have to recognize this plan, whatever it is not universal. It's not going to answer every question. And I think that a preface to this plan ought to say, here's where we are right now, what we think of for a comprehensive plan for 10 years. We have identified issues that are unresolved that need to be addressed by the community and inventory them. But we can't answer all of these questions in this plan. It's very clear. And I think that we need to acknowledge that in the preface or introduction to this plan. The word comprehensive is tricky. It sounds like, oh, that's everything. It's not, it can't be. And maybe comprehensive is a misnomer. But it's a pretty good plan for where we think we need to go with what we know now, but we know that so much more has to be done. And we should just identify those areas for future reference and urge the select board to tackle some of this by setting up more task force, God help them, or committees and so on to really attack them. And that's the best we can do. And we should just acknowledge that.
And so, I'm going to get down to the end of the implementation.
Yes, sir.
Let me speak for the Attainable Housing Working Group just a little bit. If you look at our draft report and read it through, you will find that we have a foundation that determines everything that's recommended, and that nothing would be allowed unless, number one, it can be shown that they have appropriate and adequate water supply and appropriate and adequate septic. So we're not saying, let's throw things willy-nilly, and then you can drill a well later, and maybe you hit and maybe you don't. We're saying that has to be established right from the start. The second thing is that we mentioned in 2 or 3 places, the fact that any new building should reflect the character and the architecture of the town. So we're not laying out designs saying pick A, B, C, or D, but we are saying that it has to reflect the town. So we're not looking for, 5-story glass buildings. That is strictly prohibited. So I think before we get too excited about shutting things down, realize that if you have to show that you have adequate water, if you have to provide adequate sewer, and if you have to build within the rural character and architectural style that already exists here, that takes away a lot of concerns, or it should anyway. Now, the specifics of will one project versus another be approved or not is way beyond the scope of what any of us are doing here right now. That will happen in the future when someone wants to build something and applies for a permit and so forth. But as far as the underpinning philosophy, we're with you 100%. Yes, there's gotta be water, and yes, we're not looking for things that are gonna be out of character and eyesores and so forth. And as far as the apartment thing, 2 things are pretty important there, I think. One is that you can have much more cost-effective housing. It would be nice to have a place where single people could live. 1-bedroom rentals, right? Imagine if we had 20 more 1-bedroom rentals in town. I mean, there's a whole group of people, workforce people primarily, who could take great advantage of that. And so mixing things is fine. In all of our town meetings, we conducted a number, and we also had a survey through the paper, and we had a big community meeting at the school as well. Small apartment buildings were at the top of the list of the housing choices. And there we did put choices out. We had 32 different housing styles. What do you like? What do you think would work in Harpswell? What do you not want to see in town? And small apartments were right at the top of the list. So we're just listening to the town's residents. We're not making this up. And in terms of the numbers, I think, as Bob alluded, we're not saying, oh, let's run out and build 8-unit apartment buildings. We're saying, let's not close the door on things, because we don't know what future technology will be. Think about this. You could build a 4-unit or 6-unit apartment building that would look like an old farmhouse. Now, are you going to say that can't happen? Why can't it happen? It can only not happen if you forbid it from happening. But it certainly can happen. You can design things to look like anything. So, we're not, I mean, my God, every time I drive through the base into town, I kind of gasp. I mean, that's such a, to me anyway, an unpleasant experience. And I don't think there's anyone in town who wants to see that kind of thing happening. But, the fact that we don't have municipal water and that we don't have municipal sewer means that that kind of thing won't ever happen here. So I think that instead of getting hung up in the details of what might happen, realize that it's all underpinned with adequate water, adequate sewer, appropriate architecture, and style in keeping with the town.
Just equally on top of Jim, we have a final draft. The draft is open until the May 11th or 9th meeting. We are taking information to modify that if we need to. And I would say that your approval tonight is not an approval of the final comp plan. I'll bet you it's, you
No,
put
it's not,
amendments.
it's not
It's gonna go
because,
out to public, but I bet you can put amendments to it if you had to.
well, it's not because we have meetings scheduled in the next number of weeks where we're asking people to comment and give us feedback.
But you
So
gotta
it
start
cannot, this
somewhere.
cannot be the final plan.
Very quick, very quick.
Did the lights flicker?
I know what you mean about the farmhouse design. You said you were going to supply us with some drawings and some plan views. and that would be really helpful. Right now, the planning board has no design standards for architecture that it can possibly impose on any project. So just be aware of that. But what you're suggesting is that the planning board now does have some design standards that it would have to impose or be able to impose on projects. So it would be great if you would include some of those in your report.
It has been a hiccup of ours, I'm sorry. It should have been done by now. It's not.
Mary Ann?
This is a little bit going to the water issue. I'm just sitting here thinking, currently, the water witches who came and talked to you early in the process have been looking at the same situation because people were running out of water 2 years ago when we had a drought. We also did not have a drought this past year,
Right.
so people moved on in their thinking. However, I think whether we had a comprehensive plan or not, we've been going to meetings to see how do you really find out what your situation is. We've had water tests done in the past, which are good, have good data to start. And from what I'm hearing is, if you want to really check this out further, you then have to start doing you have to know where all your wells are in town. And you would need a study. You would pay money to have a study, to have people tell you where your wells are. You get them then documented so that you can use that information to figure out where you're having a problem. This has to be done whether we had a comprehensive plan or not, if you really want to study this. I guess as I see this, we also realize that part of having enough water is also learning how to live on a place like Harpswell, how to conserve water, and how to think differently. So it's a whole process. And I guess all I'm saying is that this is something that perhaps in the comprehensive plan we would address by saying these things need to be thought about. But whether we have a comprehensive plan, that's just all, I guess what I'm saying is information we probably should be looking to get.
And you and I talked about doing a volunteer study like that.
Right. And some towns are, and there's a woman who has studied this a lot on, I think it's Shabig Island, and she seems to have a really good handle as a hydrogeologist as well of the steps to take. And we've probably done 2 of those 5 already, and what you might consider later, which has to do with.
Well, I think in the plan, as I recall, there's a recommendation to do exactly that.
Exactly.
To map the wells and do a follow-on study. The last time we did a hydrographic study in the town was 2008. There's a recommendation in the plan to update that.
Yep.
And so I think those things are covered.
And we did, at first, so the water conservation stuff was a little too wishy-washy, so we beefed that up significantly.
Here's what I would say. I want to get this sort of refocused again. Here's what I would say, a couple things. There are certain things that a comprehensive plan in the state of Maine, at least there are recommended areas to be covered. Those are the majority of the, quote, inventory chapters that were put together. It's not something that was invented here. It's part of how the state of Maine recommends a comprehensive plan to be done. So there are, how many, 8 or so, 6, 8?
11, I think.
11 different areas that have to be addressed in the plan, number one. Secondly, there are several other things that have been added specifically to address things that are unique in Harpswell. And those are included in this. The third thing I would say is that this is intended to be something that pulls together inputs from the community primarily. It's not something that we're inventing here in this little group. It's reflecting the inputs that we got from the community primarily about these specific issues. And so that drives us in a certain direction, if you will, in terms of how this is put together. And so the final thing is, remember, we have opportunities in the next month and a half to modify, change, add, subtract, whatever, to what we have here before it comes to a vote, hopefully in May. So whatever we decide tonight, this is not locked in cement, okay? And so what we want to try to do is make progress here toward the ultimate goal of reaching consensus by May 11th, 12th, whatever the date is, I can't remember. And that recognizing that not everybody's going to agree with every part of this plan. Impossible. Everybody has their own different priorities and different constituencies in the town. So, you know, it's an impossibility. But what we can do is identify areas that are important that we've looked at to accomplish the vision that we have. And that vision has been promulgated for 2 years. In Harpswell, we cherish our rural roots, flourishing fishing community, remarkable natural resources that surround us. We are committed to being a community that is welcoming, a welcoming place to raise children, enjoy life as an older adult, where businesses can thrive, and everybody has access to a vibrant waterfront. That's a very broad, very ambitious vision statement, but it covers a lot of territory when you start to unpack it. And there are a lot of different ways to achieve different parts of that vision. And some of them we're gonna hit home runs on, what we've recommended. Others are gonna go by the wayside. But that's all something that has to be worked out in the process of governing this town in the next 10 years. So with that, if we make a recommendation to approve the plan, I want it understood that this is not a final plan. This is a plan that can be subject to change and modification based on what we hear in March and April. And so I would recommend that we go forward and approve the plan with the understanding that it can be changed and modified based on what transpires in the meetings that we hold in March and April. That would be my,
One question, how bad? Oh, in the corner, how bad?
Okay. And I think one of the ways that may be confusing is, it's called a plan. But I think we're really talking about a set of visions for what the future should be like. Because it's going to be changed as we get feedback from people in the community. It's going to be changed as the task forces that have to work out the details of all these options look at what's really going on and have to deal with that. So I think it's a will-o'-the-wisp to think that we could decide on what exactly is going to happen
right.
At this meeting, or for that matter, any other meeting this year or next year.
What are there, 240 different
Something like that.
strategy, whatever, that are articulated in this plan? We might pick a half a dozen or 20 or 30 or whatever. We're not going to pick 240, but that's what's going to happen in the next, yes, sir.
I think we ought to be clear, we're not voting tonight to approve a plan. The plan's gonna be approved by the town, full stop. Discussion.
Exactly.
What we are voting on, I believe, and I think this should be clear in the minutes if people agree, we're simply voting to approve the draft for public distribution. And that's what it should say, we approve the draft for public distribution. Because in fact, it will probably change as a result.
Right.
So I hope that's clarified. And just while I have the floor, the recycle committee has in fact gone over its section of the plan, parts 1 and 2, and we have 5 recommendations in writing.
Excellent.
None of them are substantive, so I've made extra copies. If anybody wants to see them, but I'll certainly give them to you.
Yep.
Judy. We would
Excellent.
hope that they would be incorporated in the draft for public consumption.
They will.
Does everybody feel comfortable approving, whether you want to call it a plan? We're going to call it a plan because we've called it that for 2+ years. Draft plan for public distribution at this point in time. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, great.
Whoa. whoa,
get that
whoa,
done.
hold on.
All right.
That was way too quick.
Yeah, okay.
If you raise your hand if you approve, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you.
And we got two here next to me that,
Three.
three, Amy, okay. Okay, that's fine. Donald Trump would appreciate that margin of victory, but anyway.
You don't need to bring that up.
Okay, I don't want to bring that up. Bad name, okay. All right, so we're making some progress, and that's the important thing. I would finally say, guys and gals, please dig into this thing, so that when we, truly unveil this thing.
Right, so I would very much encourage people to, if there's comments that you want, we will have to get this put up on the 6th, I believe.
6th of March.
6th of March,
Which is
so.
next Wednesday.
Which is next Wednesday. So for us to incorporate edits, we can't get them on the 6th or the 7th. So if people have time the rest of this week and this weekend to go in and make comments on the plan. If you don't like doing it online and you want to send us a note like Al did, that is 100% fine. If you have trouble with the PDF, please call us and let us know so that we can help you. Whatever format work, if you just want to call me and tell me all the things you want changed, I will do that. I'll stay on the phone with you for all afternoon, or you can come to the office and we can go through it line by line. That's totally fine. Like, whatever way works best for you, let me know. But especially getting, at least from what the comments I've heard from people of where you think there's things missing, I think all those things are in there. We maybe just need to move a few things around, except for adding in some stuff about the storm and changing some of that part of it. So let's, if people can go through it and, find, it's like a 300-page document. So there are definitely spelling mistakes, and there are definitely grammar mistakes, and there's definitely places, Brian pointed one out to me where I said, yeah, I was having two thoughts and clearly they smushed together and nothing good came out of it. I had two different sentences and I don't know what happened to them. So we got that fixed. So there's things are going to be there. We've gone through it pretty carefully. We've tried, but it's a really big document that we've been looking at for a really long time. And so it gets difficult to try to see those things. So if you guys can put your fresh eyes on them and give us whatever changes, however picky you want them to be or however big you want them to be. And if you can do that by like Monday, that would be spectacular. We can maybe slide into Tuesday, but we gotta have, I would like not to work all night. So to get it done by Thursday, I need some time.
Okay, guys and gals, let's push forward and work on this.
Will
Yes, sir.
somebody send out the dates of the meetings?
Okay.
And the times and places?
That's actually the next thing on the agenda, the public engagement plan. Just to reiterate, we're going to have 3 meetings in the town, and the idea was to have meetings that were more local. One's in Cundy's Harbor, and the date, the date on that is March 21st from 4 to 6 p.m. at the community center. Matt is the task force rep, but we need some additional support. The way I would recommend that these meetings be held is, we have a presentation, if you will, summarizing the key parts of the plan. And then we open it up to discussion, comments, and input from the community, and capture those comments and input and bring them back by way of either email or social media, whatever. Get it back to the task.
We'll write up an outline and a set of questions to go along with the handout so that you guys will have those talking points. And we'll send it to the committee and you can send us back comments on it.
Okay,
I have a
so,
question, because I thought these were gonna be like walk-ins. People were gonna come in between 2 and 4.
That's what I thought too.
So
well, let's think about that. I guess my vision was a little bit differently. I wanted to have people come in, sit down, give them the essence of the plan, here are the main points of the plan. What's your feedback? But that was my thought without kind of going out. What do you think?
I would strongly recommend that you do a presentation and that everyone have a copy of the future land use map and that everyone have a copy of all the different uses and everything that's allowed and all the provisions in those, and that people leave understanding
Right.
what the future land use map looks like and what the provisions are by district.
Right.
Because if you don't do that, then people will come to town meeting and they won't know.
Right.
And that will not be a good thing.
Yeah, and don't be upset if say, well, that stinks. That doesn't make sense. Expect probably some people to say that, and that's fine. That's what we want to hear, not a lot of, but that's what we want to hear ultimately is what people really think about this. Yeah, that's a good idea. No, that doesn't work. It's not going to work because of X, Y, and Z. So that's the other part of this. My thought was we have a presentation based on the notes, the key points of the plan. We have a picture, we have the map, the future land use map on an easel. And we could actually use the same map for 3 different meetings. We don't have to make 3 different maps. We can start with Cundy's and so on, and then move it to Orr's and then Kellogg Church, because it's 3 different times. Have people take a look at the map and make sure they understand what these, the new zoning areas might be, what the rationale was for those things, and so on and so forth. If there's a different methodology that you guys think would work better, I'd like to hear it, but.
I guess my question, Al, was, when are the public hearings going to be? Are they before this, or?
No, public hearing is in April. These are meetings in March.
The public hearing is scheduled for April 9. And that will actually be, the public hearing is run by the select board, like they're in charge of the public hearing.
So what we're because I had a completely different understanding.
Yeah,
so
these
I'm
are information meetings to convey, here's the plan, the total plan, all the bits and pieces.
And this is after it's been out for a few
And
weeks.
give us your feedback on what you think, good, bad, whatever. We take all that, we make some modifications, and then we bring it to the public hearing on whatever the date is, you said. in
April 9th, I think.
In April. Here again, it's a public hearing for a reason, because we want to get feedback from the public. So there may still be some things to sort out. We pull that back in, and if we think we have to make some modifications or changes, we do it, and then it becomes available as a final product to the community, and they vote on it in May.
Okay, so it was my misunderstanding.
Yes, sir.
In terms of these various steps, pretty much starting next week, the only step where we have to publish 30 days in advance is in advance of the town meeting itself. In other words, do we have to publish something in advance of the public meeting?
No.
As opposed to the town meeting?
Only in that if you want people to come, they need to know about it.
Yeah, okay,
But there's no legal requirement for the public meetings.
No,
But for the hearing,
But the-
yes.
the 30-day requirement in state law says that there has to be a public hearing on the draft of the plan. That that draft has to be available 30 days prior to the public hearing. And so the April 8th or 9th public hearing would be on a draft of a plan that is available, and notice of the public hearing is published at least 30 days before that. Now, if you hold a public hearing and you want to make changes, technically you have to hold a second public hearing. But the notice requirement for the second public hearing, or third public hearing, or fourth public hearing, is only whatever the town normally does for a public hearing of select person's business. So you can meet on the hold the hearing on the 8th. You all can meet on the 9th and say, do we want to make any changes or not? If you want to make any changes, you can make those changes, post it, and hold a second public hearing. And there's a 2-week or 2.5-week window in which you could do that and still meet the May.
So we've scheduled in already a second public hearing,
Just in case.
assuming that we'll want that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody clear on sort of what the pathway ahead is? All
We can
right.
start advertising, I assume, and telling people about the March meetings. There's no issue with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have the dates, we have the places.
And also, once we put the draft, the same as we've put it up right now for you guys, we'll leave comments on so that the public will also have the ability to comment on the plan over time. So if they can't come to a meeting or they can't come to the public hearing, they'll have that, they'll be able to do that. And so that'll be available for them.
Kayla,
Yes.
getting the word out to the public on these information meetings.
Okay.
What's the best way to do that from the town?
I would say the anchor and,
Well, we can't do the anchor because the March anchor is already
Oh.
done deal. So it's got to be either the town website, Harpswell TV, and we need to get on social media.
yeah, I would say Facebook and Instagram and the like.
Is there any other way that we can do that effectively?
It'll also be on the comp plan website that we have.
Yeah, and the town has a master list
Right, you
of
can email.
email addresses, about 700 or 800.
Yeah. Okay, so we need to exploit all of those things.
Yep, and there's a community calendar on the Anchor's website also that we
Okay.
should put it on.
All right.
What about getting flyers or something like that, or signs to put at like the end of
Okay, so,
big
we- yeah,
intersections?
at the 3 locations, we're going to need signs sometime before the actual date and time of the meeting. We have not, our signage has not been terribly effective in the past. They've been too small and not really terribly visible. We could probably learn a lot from the fishing community in that regard.
Al, I would not discount the anchor, because the anchor does the online, which is done.
Okay, you mean that electronic thing, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
and,
all right.
and the feedback we had in a discussion with a staff member of the anchor a week or so ago is they think they get most of their response from the online version rather
Oh, okay.
than the paper version.
So I don't know, Kayla, what your availability is. I know you have 2 jobs here, but if you could work with Viewshed
Yep,
to exploit those avenues.
Sure.
That would be great.
absolutely, will do.
And then we're gonna need a sign in front of each of the venues that we have identified, at least saying, comprehensive plan information meeting, such and such a time, boom. And then we're gonna need, we need people to step up to help, in this case, Matt and Cundies, and myself, and Oars and Bailey on, and we need a presenter, ideally from the neck.
What are the dates
You want to do it?
I'll
all right.
help him, and he said he'd help me, so.
Okay, so we get George, Matt, and myself will be presenters.
What are the dates for Oars Bailey?
Oars and Bailey is the 23rd at 9:30 in the morning. It's a Saturday.
Was that at the, where was that on Oars? I
It's a
guess?
schoolhouse.
The schoolhouse by
right
the
ne-
fire
Right
station?
next to the fire station.
Yep, okay.
And then the neck?
The neck is at Kellogg Church, we call it the hall, the fellowship hall,
24th in the fellowship hall.
24th, and then Cundies is the
2 to 4.
2 to 4, and then Cundies is 4 to 6 at the community center.
What date for Cundies?
4 to, March 21st, 4 to
Yeah,
6.
it's clear, we're good.
It's a Sunday.
But also, I'll reiterate that the optics of you guys showing up
Doing the 24th.
are important. So you should all go to as many of them as you can.
Sir,
On Sunday, George.
We did too many of these things. I mean that tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
It seemed like for a couple of months, that's all I was doing.
Yeah.
And all Bob was doing and our whole committee. Just a couple points to maybe help you be a little more effective in these meetings is to be sure that you identify and address everyone in the audience. Because what will happen is that one person is loud and will get up and will monopolize the time. And 15 or 20 other people will leave saying, I never got a chance to say anything. So you've kind of got to manage that a little bit. It's not a matter of cutting people off, it's a matter of saying, well, let's hear from other people as well. The other thing I would recommend is, after, say, gee, I'd really like to know what, if anything, you like about the plan, and what, if anything, you don't like about the plan.
Absolutely, yep.
And if there's something you don't like about the plan, please give me specifics. Why you don't like that, or why you think that's not viable, or why you think that's not in the town's best interest. So try to get, solid feedback, both good and bad, but give everyone in your audience a chance to talk, and not just 2 or 3 of the loudest people
Yeah,
dominating the conversation, which
Sure.
will happen.
sure.
The other thing is that what we found, and Mark can attest to this because he was the victim of it in many ways, is that after every one of these things, we went back and tweaked the plan a little more. After every one of these sessions, we heard a new idea, or we heard a concern or something, and we realized we had to rewrite a paragraph, or we had to add something new, or we had to drop something because it just wasn't flying. So this is really when you make your plan, is feedback from these people at these events. It's important, but you've kind of got to sublimate your own feelings and listen to the audience.
Yes, Amy?
This is why I think it's really important that we not just have people walk in and ask questions. I think we have to really, people don't know what they don't know. And so I think it's going to be really important to explain to people for a good 20 minutes to half an hour with visuals and
Yeah.
handouts, what's in the plan.
Yeah, and that was my
really go
thought.
through district by district, these are the main concerns, this is what we identified, this is how we address them, this is where you'll find it, this is where you see it. And it's really gonna be a teach-in
Yeah.
in many
And
ways.
it's gonna be important for us to put aside our own personal biases
Yes, it
and
is.
present it
Yes, it is.
as it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes, Matt?
In terms of like garnering the feedback, can we record it, like the whole presentation? Is that legal? Like, what's the best way, I guess, to get people's feedback at these meetings?
I would tell you, Matt, to be you. This is you talking to your community. And even if you don't do it right, it's still better that you talk to your community and let them be an equal to you.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but can we
we had-
record the presentation so we can bring that recording back and show it to Judy and say, hey, this is what, so we have it on record?
Get
This is your-
someone
this
with
is
you
your
who writes
talking
fast.
Yeah, all right.
It's basically outline,
I will
and
be
then have,
at your meeting, George, and I will take
Yes.
notes for you.
Thank you.
have a backup and get it committed. Don't let Al walk out of here without you having a backup.
Need a backup.
I'm willing to take
Every meeting.
the schoolhouse or Kellogg, and I'll come and
You will-
Okay, I got a backup.
phones
There we go.
everywhere.
Meetings
Yes.
are exceptional information.
All right.
And you'll have fun at it.
Oh,
Bob?
yeah.
I've done 6 or 8 of these things. People have good information.
If you
And
ask people to like, can you write that down for me, is that something?
so
that you
there's
could-
one of the persons, your cohort needs to be taking notes. Somebody has to take
Yeah, don't
notes
put
for
the
you.
burden on the
Because you got
audience
too
to
much
write it
to
down. Get
present.
someone there who
Okay.
can take the notes. Yeah.
I actually think it's a good idea to have some note cards, because sometimes people are shy and they don't want to speak out, but they will write it down. You'll get more comments from people talking than you will from writing it down, but I think it's good to offer it, so we can have little note cards for people.
Mr. Eaton.
This is your time to shine. Just go at it live. Don't be afraid of it.
Okay, Bob?
It's from the heart.
the last 5 minutes has been like a popcorn. We've had a lot of good ideas popping up, and I think they need to be noted and taken into account. I suggest that the 3 people who are now taking responsibility for the 3 locales, minimum, and joined by anybody else who wants it, there needs to be not just talking points, but a format established in writing that all 3 work off of.
Yeah.
And so on.
We need to have the same sheet of music.
We'll have it.
Second point is, we should always be cognizant that once we're pretty firm on this scheduling and so on, major events can be publicized with a signboard and a person handing out leaflets. The only thing we've got is a common, that's the town commons, which is the town, recycle center. And that's proved to be very helpful.
Oh, yeah?
And third, I live in the Cundy's Harbor suburb north near Weber Septic, and I would be happy to be your secretary and take notes.
Yeah, I got 3 of them now.
Got a
Come on
couple.
down.
You gotta find out with
The more the merrier.
More people taking notes, the better it is.
Okay, so let's make sure we're clear. You're gonna put together a script, not a
Yes,
script, but an outline
Yep,
that is gonna be distributed to everybody that's gonna be leading these discussions.
distribute it to the whole
So we're
committee
all on the
so
same
people
sheet.
That makes it way
Also
easier.
describes, yes.
We're gonna have a visible chart of the future land use plan that can be referred to during the discussion, and people can look at and review and think about it, so on. We're gonna have another person gathering notes, whether it's writing them or collecting inputs from people, whatever, and consolidating the feedback that we get at each one of these meetings and funneling it back to Judy and myself and Amy as the vice chair.
if you
and-
get them, if you get them back to us, we'll type up exactly what you send
Okay.
us before we put it in the plan. I mean, we're not gonna make changes without it. You
Okay,
guys
and the
know
only
it.
other thing is the signage outside these venues needs to be put up in a reasonable amount of time before. I think OBI has signs that you can modify. I'll double check that. But I would suggest if we can get signs up 10 days or so before the dates here, that's basically mid-March, just to say comprehensive plan information meeting, date, time, and whatever.
And we're gonna put all the dates on the handout so that you can hand those out at the town
Okay.
meeting, March 9th.
And we have some that we could use as posters to put up like at the post office and at the general store. We could take that into a smaller format and have all the dates on them.
Well, what we can,
We'll make a thing.
What
We'll
would
just
you-
use one of the ones we've done before and put dates on it for a 8.5 by 11.
okay, good. Amy?
I'd like to just be really clear about what I think we should have put together for the presentations, and that is a map, a future land use map on a piece of paper like this. And then all of these developed areas and maintain existing development patterns, control growth areas, all that language as a handout for everybody.
Well, if that's what you guys want, well, I'll do that. You know, if that's what the committee decides you want. I would say that printing the map on an 8.5 by 11 makes the map useless because it's too small for people to be able to read it. So I would prefer that there be a link to the PDF of the thing so that people can go to it and look. And at the meeting, we can have 2 or 3 copies of the big map so people can gather around them. That's fine. But my feeling is that putting the map on 8.5 by 11 and printing it, color printing, it gets a little more, color printing is always not as crisp, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I get that, but I'm just gonna, for argument's sake, it would give something for people to take home.
Yep.
Maybe not have, a million copies of them, but if people want to take one home, they could take one home.
yeah, if the town wants to print them, I will make them available.
And then just have the stuff that people can take home and read that describes, I mean, the future land use map, you can generally read the colors. So if you can read the colors and then look at the colors and see what is on, the written paper.
Yeah.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
The only things that you might really miss are some of the fishing and smaller.
Yeah, I mean, it's no problem doing it, the map's all made up.
Yeah, I think it would give some people things to take home.
Okay. Peter?
One more comment. So our friends from the Affordable Housing Task Force, will you guys be attending these meetings as well? The answer is yes.
I'm not here.
Well, they can attend either as official,
Peter, the answer to
officials.
that question is hopefully, but all of them have decided to go on vacation or somewhere else.
'Cause they've been working so
All
hard.
at the same time. But I think there will
That's a
be,
close group.
they're going different places.
They're not all going one place.
Go right to Noah. They can't all fly on the same
Oh, that's
plane.
true.
Okay,
But I think there will be at least one or two representatives at each of the,
Okay.
at each of the.
And if you guys have, if there's a handout that you want us, want to have available, if we're having other handouts, then for sure, make sure that we have that.
We have our standard overview, yes.
Yeah.
okay, so,
That's handy, that's all I'm saying.
okay, so there's one other thing we need to cover. We have we all clear on the way ahead in terms of our information plan and reaching out to the community and how we're going to do that? Okay, and we know who's responsible for what. All right, I have one other thing on the agenda, and that is this handout, which was given to us before the meeting, is a proposed handout for the March meeting. Obviously, we're not going to have time to review it and give you feedback tonight. I would ask all of the task force members to look at it, and if you have any comments, questions, inputs and so on about this, please get them to Judy as soon as possible.
We'll email you a link also so that you could comment on the PDF, but you can also, again, send it to me any way you want, or
Okay.
call me.
Recognizing that we have to have these things printed up and available by the March town meeting.
Yeah,
Yes,
and we'll update it with the March meeting dates that you
okay,
gave us.
okay, great, great.
Is that our handout?
Judy also.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. I think we got a lot accomplished. And we're almost there. We're almost there,
Don't forget to comment, send us stuff.
yeah.
Call us, camp out at our office, whatever it takes.
Thank you very much for your continued support. This has been a long road, and I appreciate your help and support. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.